Hello, my name is Gina Cronrath. I'm a master's nursing student at Excelsior College, and today I'm going to talk about the authentic leadership model and how we can use those concepts to improve nurse retention and student nurse retention. The central issue here is that many nurses are getting ready to retire. They were from the baby boom age and they are of retirement age in the next few years. So we're going to be losing a lot of nurses out of the workforce. At the same time, we're not retaining student nurses that well either. So we need to kind of regroup and get a new way of retaining both of these because we're going to have a huge nursing shortage in the future if we don't. So we're going to try and discover how using the authentic leadership model is going to help with that, with the nurse retention and the student nurse retention to increase the nursing staff that we need into the future. So nursing statistics, I thought these were interesting. There's a huge hospital turnover rate of RNs. In 2015, there was a study done, and there was 17.2% of RNs in the hospital setting left, and that's up from 13.5% in 2011. Hospitals lose $379,500 annually when nurses leave, and they retain that amount and keep it and have it to help them when nurses stay. So we can see that monetarily losing nurses to a lot of turnover isn't good either. There's 500,000 nurses out of the 3.1 million in the U.S. that are going to retire over the next several years, and that's from the New England Journal of Medicine statistics. And within 10 years, half of all nursing school faculty is going to retire also. And this is leading up to a big problem with why we can't have as many nursing students as we need when we have really good applicants, but we don't have enough nursing faculty. So that's another problem. So factors influencing nurse retention from another study is that good doctor-nurse relationships help a lot. The nurse workload, if they have a good patient-to-nurse ratio, if they have good meal and rest breaks, and they get those as required by law, and if they have an authentic and trusting support from their nurse leaders and administration. And also the ability to make independent decisions and be part of the organizational decisions was very important in nurse retention. Outside of that, developing personal and professional skills was another part that was cited by nurses as being important and what made them stay. So when they did a discussion in small groups and staff meetings with nurses and said, what would make the workplace less stressful? What would make you want to stay here? Nurses said, we need a serene break area so we can rest and rejuvenate a little bit while we're working. We need increased staff education and better cross-training so that we'll feel comfortable going to different areas we don't work at all the time. They wanted to have staff huddles where they would meet daily with their nurse managers and leaders so that they could disseminate information that they needed. And they wanted more staff potlucks and holiday celebrations so they could just bond better and feel like a cohesive group. All of these things that they cited decreased stress and encouraged nurse retention. So what is this authentic nurse model of leadership? It comes from the Greek philosophy that says to know thyself. So it requires a deeper personal knowing, and it requires nurse leaders to have ethics and purpose and a use of one's strengths. And sometimes changing traditional ways and not always doing it the way we've always done it because that's how we've done it, kind of getting out of those traditions and thinking out of the box a little bit and being innovative. That's all part of the authentic leadership model. So it's not one directional, but it's kind of multi-directional, upward and outward, and it's shaped by life events, culture, new skills. It's just a way of expanding and stretching oneself to think in a slightly different way. It's also been very successful in business with salespeople. They have tried these concepts and done much better with their sales and have felt much more confident. So how can we use this model to retain nurses, which is one of our key issues here? Well, in a 2014 qualitative nurse study that was done, they interviewed nurses And they said, you know what, if the management really knows themselves and they stay positive and they have compassion and kindness and they take on challenges and we can grow from adversity and we can be reliable and transparent and motivated, that would all make us really resilient and that would help us to cope better with all the stresses that we know being a nurse is. So resiliency from this model and coping skills were some of the outcomes that came from it. And this model seems to foster that. So another example is a magnet hospital in Boise, Idaho called St. Luke's Regional Medical Center. It has retained magnet status 4 times, which is not easy to do. And part of that is nurse retention. They look at that a lot, and are nurses staying there and why? So some of the things that they saw when they looked at this hospital, what are they doing right? How are they keeping nurses there? They found these things. They have good evidence-based practice. They disseminate that evidence and that knowledge in what they call little hubs within the hospital, so it's very accessible to everybody. They have forward thinking. When there are mistakes made, there's a non-punitive peer review way of looking at that and seeing system-wide how can we make that better, not just singling individuals out. They foster autonomy and professional advancement, which is very important when nurses feel like they're growing and there's different levels that they can attain within the organization. And they have a strong residency program, which has encouraged new grads to stay, and it has proven that they do stay because they get a really good start at this hospital and they feel confident in what they're doing. So all of that, plus one problem they were having where they used this leadership concept and it really helped, they were having trouble with documenting pain correctly and appropriately with patients. So they didn't have a very high compliance throughout the hospital of doing this accurately and right. So using this model and this concept, they increased accurate documentation of pain from 57% up to 93%, and that was done in 3 months. So that was kind of putting this concept into action. And the other part of this, paper I would like to share with you is how to retain student nurses, because that's important too. If we don't have student nurses, we're not going to have nurses into the future. So in order to apply the correct theory for change, as Chin and Kramer have reported, we have to know our audience. And most nursing students are of Generation Y. There are nursing students of other ages, of course, but the majority are called Generation Y, and that are the students that were born between 1980 and 2000. So they're in their 20s and early to mid 30s. The traits of this group are they're very diverse, they're very technological, they're very vocal and opinionated, they're a little resistant to tradition, they're distrustful of institutions, and they want recognition and reward for their accomplishments. So we have to kind of tailor our teaching methods and our institutions a little bit to what will reach this age group. And they're the first group to have research-based and best practice methods and outcome data in their education and beyond in the workforce. So what motivates Generation Y? Well, like I said before, they like self-efficacy, they like healthy interpersonal relationships that are honest and transparent, they like autonomy, they're very much want life-work balance and will actually leave if that isn't attained for them, especially as they go into the workforce. And they just embrace praise and people that listen to them. So using the concepts of the authentic leadership model can be applied to this group, and it was in another study. And they took associate degree nurses from a 58% graduation rate up to a 92% graduation rate in a couple years, and that was from 2005 and 6, and it increased in 2007 and 8. And the same with BSN programs. They took the bachelor programs from a rate of 38% graduation back in 2005 all the way up to 92% in 2008. So as I finish my master's degree, and I hope to teach nursing students, that is what I would love to do. I plan to implement some of these authentic leadership concepts into my classroom with my students someday. And what I would like to do, I've thought about this, the things I would like to implement are journaling. I feel like journaling is a very good way for self-reflection and to see where you are when you start and where you are as you go through the course and where you're at when you get to the end. You can see growth, and that's always a positive thing. I would also like to implement something I call the buddy study system, where I would have a student pick a buddy to study with and to kind of vent maybe sometimes and to just be there for them. And then I would like to have small groups. Several times a week, I would take different small groups from the classroom, and I would like to have a question and answer time with them, go over material, go over barriers if they're having a struggle in something, whatever I can do to improve their learning experience. I would be the facilitator, but I would have them bring out the kind of the format and what they would like to discuss for that week. And then I would like to be transparent, have a very open door policy for students to come and meet with me and talk with me. I want to know their concerns. I want feedback, both positive and negative. And I would like to implement like some student nurse rep, or some representatives in the class, student representatives that other students could go to. And then I would meet with them maybe monthly or so, the representatives, and see what is the feel of the class. Are they struggling? Or is the experience positive? What can we do a little different? Just get the feedback from the representatives. And this would always give the students someone to go to. And then I'd like to implement a college bowl type competition among the different classes and maybe do that 3 times a year. And this would help them to retain information that they need to retain in kind of a fun way, but it would also help that praise and recognition that this group so earnestly wants. At the end, whoever won the competition could get a trophy. We would have the names inscribed and they could keep that. So sharing results, both negative and positive. I'd gather the data after a while, see what's worked, what hasn't, and I would like to share that not only with the administration that I work for at whatever school I'm employed at, but I'd also like to share it. I think I would also share it with the students. That would be good because they're a part of that. And then I would like to write a journal peer-reviewed article for like a nurse educator journal and share my findings and what I found to be makes for a good teacher in a good classroom. And then maybe be a speaker or share it at a national convention for nurse educators. So in conclusion, this effective leadership model, the authentic leadership model, it provides a deep sense of knowing. And with that, we can improve nurse retention, student nurse retention, by being authentic, by being transparent, by being ethical, by allowing people to be autonomous in what they value and what they think, creating an atmosphere where they can feel free to share and feel free to be innovative. I think those are all important things, and that personal knowing and that personal growth is what is going to keep nurses wanting to be nurses and be nurses today and into the future, and the same with our student nurse population, just as this literature has shown. And that concludes my talk. Thank you very much, and my references are listed also. Thank you.